The darkest night. April 21st, 2015, marked the beginning of a nightmare for the quiet town of Ridgewood. Search teams would later describe the horrors they uncovered as something they would never forget. Charlotte Dawson was born on February 13, 1968, and grew up in a small town in Nebraska. She was known as a gentle and kind soul, always putting family first. In her adult years, she remained close to her mother, Margaret, and her brother, Daniel. Charlotte lived a simple life, content with spending time with her loved ones. That April morning began like any other, but it would be the last time 47-year-old Charlotte was ever seen alive. Her brother, Daniel, recalled their last conversation over a cup of tea in the kitchen. Charlotte mentioned that she planned to buy a ring in the Ridgewood town center. That afternoon, she ventured out, made her purchase, and then stopped by a few local bars. While there was nothing inherently strange about her having a drink, it was unusual. She rarely drank and had a low alcohol tolerance. Charlotte visited multiple establishments, and at one point, a bartender refused to serve her, noticing she was too unsteady on her feet. Eventually, by 7:45 p.m., she wandered into the Rusty Lantern pub, a popular spot among locals. There she encountered a 50-year-old man named Edward Finch. Charlotte appeared nervous, fragile, traits that likely intrigued Edward, a man with dark, twisted desires. Regulars at the pub described him as a friendly joker, someone who frequented the Rusty Lantern often. As the night progressed, Charlotte's demeanor shifted. She began relaxing around Edward and his friends, even flirting with him at times. Witnesses recalled Edward offering to buy her drinks if she agreed to go home with him. Charlotte declined, insisting she wasn't that kind of woman. But as the clock neared 11:30 p.m., CCTV cameras captured Charlotte walking alongside Edward, heading toward his apartment. Just 3 hours later, neighbors below Edward's flat were startled awake by a loud thud. They assumed Edward, known for his drinking, had simply stumbled home drunk. Thinking nothing of it, they went back to sleep. The next day, Charlotte never returned home. Her family grew increasingly worried. At his restaurant job, Edward showed up with fresh scratches on his face. His manager asked about them, and Edward casually claimed he had an accident while assembling a shelf. His story raised no suspicions at the time. A neighbor also spotted Edward struggling to carry something, looking exhausted and unwell. His appearance left an impression. He seemed drained, lifeless. Meanwhile, Charlotte's mother, Margaret, began making calls, desperate for any sign of her daughter. She checked with Charlotte's sister, Evelyn, but she too had no idea where Charlotte was. With unanswered calls and messages, the family decided to report her missing. As investigators retraced Charlotte's final movements, they pieced together that she had last been seen at the Rusty Lantern pub with Edward Finch. On April 24th, just days after she vanished, Sergeant Patrick Mills and Officer Jordan Hayes knocked on Edward's door. He hesitated at first, but eventually let them inside. Immediately, a foul smell hit the officers. One of them later described it as a mix of rotting meat and cat urine. Edward appeared uneasy as he recounted his version of events. He admitted meeting Charlotte and leaving the pub with her, but claimed she stormed off after he made an inappropriate comment. He insisted he returned home alone and never saw her again. The officers weren't convinced. They requested to search the apartment, and Edward reluctantly agreed. As they moved further inside, the stench grew unbearable. When they reached the bathroom, they pulled back the shower curtain. What they saw was the stuff of nightmares. Charlotte's dismembered arms and legs lay inside the bathtub. Forensics teams were immediately called to the scene, while Edward was arrested and taken into custody. A horrifying collection of tools was found inside the apartment: a handsaw, a kitchen knife, and scissors, all used to dismember her body. An old Adidas backpack contained Charlotte's torso, while her severed fingers were discovered in a handbag, but her head was missing. News of the gruesome discovery spread rapidly, shaking the small town to its core. During questioning, Edward admitted to hiding some of Charlotte's remains in a storm drain. The following day, officers arrived at the location he described. Inside the dark, damp tunnel, they spotted something lying on a ledge. A red bag sat near the bottom of the chamber, and next to it was Charlotte's severed head. It was covered in bruises and slash marks. The realization that Edward had walked through town with Charlotte's head inside a backpack was beyond chilling. The trial commenced later that year. Officer Jordan Hayes, who had discovered Charlotte's remains, broke down while testifying. "I thought my eyes were deceiving me. It felt like I was watching a horror movie," he said. A forensic pathologist testified that the dismemberment was carried out by someone skilled with knives, possibly with experience cutting human or animal flesh. Investigators soon discovered that Edward had once worked as a butcher. He knew exactly how to separate meat from bone. Edward's defense argued that Charlotte had been caught stealing from his wallet, and in a fit of rage, he strangled her. He claimed it was self-defense, insisting that when he realized what he had done, he was physically sick and panicked. Over the next few days, he disposed of her body in pieces, but the evidence painted a much darker picture. Investigators uncovered disturbing details from Edward's laptop. On the night of Charlotte's murder, he had spent hours watching explicit, violent content, strongly suggesting a sexual motive behind the crime. Further forensic testing revealed Edward's DNA on Charlotte's body. The prosecution argued that he had violated her after her death, playing out his depraved fantasies on an innocent woman. One of the most disturbing details: several of Charlotte's internal organs were missing. Some were later found clogging Edward's toilet, evidence that he had attempted to flush them away. On November 19, 2015, after a 2-week trial, Edward Finch was found guilty of Charlotte Dawson's murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 28 years. He showed no emotion as the verdict was read. In the aftermath of this unimaginable horror, Charlotte's family struggled to cope with their loss. Her mother, Margaret, tearfully stated, "It feels like we're living in a nightmare. He has torn my family apart." Her brother, Daniel, added, "I wake up angry every day. I struggle to sleep most nights." The town of Ridgewood was forever changed. Charlotte Dawson had been brutally taken from her family, her life cut short in the most horrifying way. But even in death, her memory lived on, a gentle soul lost to unspeakable evil.